And here we go, hitting the road or the ground running with the news review. And we're joined, of course, the Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa. He makes my day every Monday. Suleiman Brahima joins the conversation. Good morning, Mr. Brahima.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. Right before we get into the papers, a few quick issues I'd like to run by you. Some of them also in the papers, so we'll still get to digest them. There have been a number of issues that have arisen over the weekend. One of them has been the clash between the Vandals, of Commonwealth Hall and the Vikings of Mensa Saba Hall. Now, I am an old Vandal. I know how things have gone over time, some of the frostiness between the two halls. We also know that sometimes it has degenerated, spilled over into the destruction of property and all of that. I'm told the Mensa Saba statue has been taken away. And we've heard from the University of Ghana saying that, well, this is what happened. But the Vandals have also come out forcefully to say, no, these are not Vandals who engaged in this nefarious activity. And we saw someone's vehicle being burnt to a crisp. How do we address issues like this one in our tertiary institutions especially? And don't you forget, recently in Bolgatanga, I think Botek also, we saw, a similar activity, maybe not on that big a level, but it seems to be simmering, percolating from the lower levels to the higher one. What's your reaction?
Well, it's really unfortunate, and those of us who have had the privilege of studying at the University of Ghana know the long-standing tradition of rivalry between the Commonwealth Hall and the Mensa Saba Hall. Quite often, it's been manifested in ways that have been quite interesting. It's just a student rivalry between two halls. But for it to escalate into what we have heard and read is really very unfortunate. And it boils down to perhaps the growing levels of indiscipline in our society. I think it is unwarranted to have students who are supposed to be among the enlightened group of our society. We can understand, or even, we all do complain about the various spots of conflicts across the country, the Boko conflict. Occasionally, we hear some in the Northeast region, Northern region, Volta region, and even sometimes in the other regions that we think have no issues in the South. But mainly these are conflicts usually over land, over chieftaincy, and the actors are predominantly quite often people who have not maybe been to school before. And so we tend to think that, look, these people are unenlightened, uneducated, illiterate, and that's why they are acting that way. So for these things to be happening in our foremost university in the country is really, really unfortunate. And I believe that the authorities at the university will look into it and take actions that would make sure that in the future we don't have a recurrence of what happened 2 or 3 days ago. But on a lighter note, Ben, those of us who have also been at the university and as an alumnus of the Hall of Excellence, the Akakpo Hall, we do know how, sometimes rowdy students from these halls can be as if, they come to the school and they are baptized to be rowdy. I think it is time they learn from great halls like the Akakpo Hall and students, from that hall. If we had students behaving in the way that Akakpo Hall students are made to behave, I don't think that we would have some of these things happening. So it's unfortunate, but I think it's time you advise your people.
Well, at least we have that out of the way. You've shared your thoughts on that. Let's get into the papers, and as we go on, I'll share some other thoughts. But let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Making country self-sufficient will build robust economy. That's according to President Akufo-Addo, who has said government is working assiduously to build a robust Ghanaian economy that will make the country self-sufficient, even in the midst of a global crisis. To that end, he said the government was pursuing aggressive policies and programs towards the structural transformation of the economy to make it more robust to withstand both internal and external shocks. In fact, He says, this is why the government under my leadership since 2017 has laid emphasis, quoting him, on industrial transformation through especially the one district, one factory, the transformation of the automobile industry, as well as strategic addition to mineral resources, which are key drivers to a future robust Ghanaian economy, he said. I want you to digest what the president is saying from different angles. We know that Standard & Poor's has downgraded us from B- to CCC+ with a negative outlook. That definitely isn't positive when you hear of the negativity in there. The Guta, for example, has come out to say, look, we must stem the tide of the exchange rate volatility, because guess what? If we are not careful, by end of year, we could be hitting $1 to 10 cedis. That would basically mean you would need 1 million Ghana cedis to secure $100,000. And that it's shambolic, it's affecting business, and that things are simply not going the way they want. So with this kind of rhetoric and what we see on the ground, what do you make of these dimensions?
Well, I think that in the last 5 years, one group that has been doing an excellent job has been the speechwriters of the president. I think they are good at making the president, say the kinds of things that would inspire hope and would inspire confidence.
And that's their job to do. So if they're doing a good job at it, kudos to them.
So I think they deserve some commendation. What is then missing is the action that should accompany those flowery words that we have been hearing since 2017. The president started off by promising that he would protect the public purse. We've witnessed 5 years of actually allowing the public purse to be abused. The president started off by saying that if you need money, you don't have to join his government, and that money is made in the private sector. We've witnessed 5 years where people in government have become so wealthy to the point where I believe sometimes people see it as a normal thing. And all these have happened under the leadership of the president. We've witnessed 5 years where the president has chosen to live the most luxurious and most expensive lifestyle in terms of travels and other things at a time when school kids are still lying on their bellies to write, people don't have ordinary water to drink, and we keep hearing all this. We've witnessed 5 years where we've had a promise of building one village, one dam, which I knew was not going to be possible, but my expectation was that even if a meaningful dam could be constructed in each of the 5 regions that we have now, that would have been a significant boost to the economy of the country, and particularly to the economy in the northern sector of the country. What we had was just, dugouts that people had to construct in order to make money under the leadership of the president. We've had a situation where we've seen the biggest government size ever, especially in the first term, over 100 ministers in an economy that was struggling. So for me, I'm quite surprised when the president finds these words on paper and feels confident to pronounce them, because all the indicators point to the opposite direction of what the president says. As you've rightly said, we touted ourselves and credentials for exiting an IMF program prematurely, as we are learning now. And then just a few years down the line, we are back into an IMF program, despite all the billions that have been borrowed. And remember that this government has borrowed more than all previous governments. And what it means is not just the borrowing. What it means is that this government has imposed debts on future generations of this country more than any other government. And yet, we haven't seen something that is commensurate with the borrowing and the amount of monies that have come in.
Right.
So, the president can keep, talking big and giving hope, but at the end of the day, you talk to people on the streets and they will tell you that they are experiencing the worst form of governance, since the Fourth Republic started.
So just to put this in a nutshell, are you saying this is governance and economic management merely based on rhetoric? Is that what you're saying?
I think I've said that a number of times, that we
Right.
have a government that is being, it's all about PR, hiring expensive PR firms from the US to run public relations firms, doing branding, good
Right.
speeches, all of that. But at the end of the day, people look at what is on the ground and how they feel in their life.
Let's quickly get into some other stories. And electric poles vandalized in Kroboland. That's the latest turn in the impasse between the ECG and Kroboland over power supply to the area. According to the ECG, that was further proof of the continuous threat to the lives of its staff and property, a situation that was making it difficult to get the staff to get down to work and restore power, which was cut off on July the 27th. That issue is a rather troubling one, and hopefully some amicable solution can be found between the ECG, the task force it has set up, and the people of Kroboland who have been without power since late July. But I would have you respond to that after I add the story so you can just put them together. Office of Special Prosecutor recovers 1.074 million Ghana cedis from Labianca company. That story on page 11 of the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let's take a quick look. And the Office of the Special Prosecutor has recovered 1.07 million from Labianca Company Limited, owned by a member of the Council of State, Ms. Eunice Jacqueline Bua Asumahene. The amount represents a shortfall in import duties the frozen foods company paid to the state. In an investigative report, the OSP accused Ms. Asumahene of influence peddling for allegedly using her position as a member of the Council of State and member of the Board of Directors of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority to get a favorable decision from the Customs Division of the GRA, which led to a reduction in the tax liabilities of Labianca Company. Influence peddling or trading of influence is a form of corruption in which a person uses his or her position or political influence to gain unmerited favors. So different angles to this conversation. We don't often see this happen. Someone in authority who walks the corridors of power being subjected to something of this sort, where you could call it a surcharge of sorts. You've done this, you didn't pay up to the tax levels you should have, and now you're being called back to do exactly that. Of course, sometimes people would say to make it even more punitive, let them pay with interest, because this has been over time. But how does this reflect on the work of the special prosecutor?
Well, this is a positive development, and over time, Mr. Kisie Jabin is demonstrating that he is truly committed to executing the mandate of the office. We know that it will not be easy, but for the office to have taken this step involving a member of the Council of State and a very, very well-known, staunch supporter and funder of the New Patriotic Party is really commendable. I remember there was this development where David Tamaklo of WhatsApp News was arrested by the police for publishing false news, and it turned out that it was something that was yet to be published because the journalist had engaged this CEO or owner of Labianca, whose husband at that time, I don't know if he is still a police commissioner, but was at that time a police commissioner. And even before the story could be published, the police was made to arrest David Tamaklo on the basis of publication of false news for a story that was yet to be published. And so that is the level of influence that the person involved has. And so for the Office of the Special Prosecutor to take that step, it's really commendable, and it gives hope that we're going to see perhaps more actions. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the extent to which some of these developments can just be left at the surcharge, and at what point can people be prosecuted for certain offenses. If it is something that can be prosecuted, we would want to see prosecution taking place beyond the recovery of the funds. But otherwise, it's really commendable.
Let's wrap with some sports very quickly. Ghana wins 5 medals in Birmingham And bringing some joy to us, Team Ghana secured 4 medals at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham over the weekend, with Joseph Paul Amwa and long jumper Deborah Aqua completing the nation's medal haul. So boxers Abraham Mensah, Joseph Kome and Abdul Wahid Omar earned semi-final berths to secure themselves medals at the Games last Thursday, before Amwa won the nation's first 200-meter medal in 48 years. Mensah finished his bantamweight contest as a silver medalist after failing to go past Dylan James Eagleson. And so Team Ghana at least walking away with some pride at the Games. We expected more, but at least Oliver will always ask for more, but it doesn't mean Oliver hasn't got anything at all. So some pride for us as Ghanaians. Very briefly on that, Suleiman.
Yeah, congratulations to the medalists and to all the participants at the Games. We watched with pride when Ghanaians were involved in any of the events. And anytime a medal was won, that was really heartwarming. I looked at the medal table yesterday and it didn't look quite well. I think we were down in the 30th or so. Nigeria was at that time on the 5th position, and so congratulations to them. I think it's an event that is worth celebrating. What would be good to look at is those who won the medals. Are they local-based Ghanaians? I mean, are they based in country, or they are out there? Because sometimes I believe the absence of proper facilities for training can affect the level of performance. And so we need to look at those who won the medals. Are they based here in Ghana?
Well, some of them definitely are, like Mensah, who is with the Seconds Out boxing gym. At least some of them definitely are. But it also means that, I mean, there's been acceptance that there could have been better preparation for some of the games, and that if they had had that, who knows how much better they could have fared.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this shows that there is talent in country, and what we need to do is to invest more in the talents, build the necessary facilities, and put in the necessary resources to allow for a lot more training, proper training, and so on and so forth. And I believe that in the next games, we could do better than we've done. But okay, as I said, congratulations to the medalists.
Let's look at Republic Press. I'll just walk through the issues and focus on one or two. Northeast RCC, Regional Coordinating Council, gets administration block. Man electrocuted to death for attempting to steal ECG cables in Kumasi. The impunity nowadays, surprises me, but maybe I shouldn't be so surprised. 2 robbers jailed 20 and 10 years with hard labor. President shakes up national security apparatus, and then woman jailed 10 years for killing lover over grass cutter soup. Bela. But the big one there, the banner headline, NDC blows hot air over EC's no Ghana card, no vote directive. Now, just to break down, the EC has been explaining that it's not going to be a wholesale activity. Those turning 18, numbering, say, about 450, 500,000 year on year, are those that are going to be added on and have to go through this process. But the NDC has been saying that is not the way to go. And they are saying that generally it shouldn't be used either, calling it absurd. Their party chairman has said so. The likes of Kofi Bentil of Imani Africa, one of their vice presidents, says the Ghana card is not proof of citizenship. That is echoed by Dr. Afarijan, who also made that statement that the question is moot. Let's not even go there. What is your quick reaction to this dynamic? Is the EC getting it right, or is it that Ghanaians are maybe blowing hot air, or maybe making a mountain out of a molehill?
Well, I think that the problem really is with the EC and the fact that we have an EC that appears not to be consulting before making decisions. The last time I read that, political parties and civil society organizations have agreed to the new system that they would want to use, the new policy that they would want to implement. And I was asking myself if indeed civil society was or has been consulted. Yes, I wouldn't say that that would mean necessarily that we'll be involved, but certainly within the civil society platforms that I belong to, I would have read it or heard about it from one platform or the other. I didn't see anything like that. And again, I was surprised when I read that the NDC had raised an objection, because the EC's statement sought to create the impression that political parties have agreed. So if we all know that in this country, MPP, NDC control about 90 to 95% of the votes. So if you say political parties have agreed, and what that means is that it is between the MPP and the parties that do not even command up to 5% put together, then are you trying to mislead the public or what? And I think sometimes they may be making a good decision, they may be taking a good step, but because they fail to consult broadly, because they fail to educate the stakeholders necessarily, because of the high levels of suspicion, and it is not just with this EC. During Afarajan's time, or any party that is in opposition would accuse the EC of doing one thing or the other to favor the government in power. But this particular EC has its own unique problems, because we have a situation where predecessors were dismissed from office, and then you had instances of people who were well-known party people appointed as commissioners, and then Madame Jean Mensah over time has been there's been a lot of bombardments that has created some mistrust and credibility issues. And so the least you would expect is that if the EC wants to make any decision, it would do broad consultation, bring everyone on board. Ghanaians would understand, so that if in the interest of partisanship, the NDC or any party decides that no, we are opposed to it, the majority of Ghanaians would say, look, what the EC is doing is the right thing. But if you sneak in a CI to parliament, the people of Ghana are unaware, then it's the NDC parliamentarians who come out with a certain position on the CI, then it creates a certain impression that furthers the mistrust and the credibility issues for the EC.
Right.
So for me, the EC has to up its game in terms of trying to do things in a way that would, wipe away, at least somehow, the mistrust and the credibility issues that it is suffering. Otherwise, it is the EC that will plunge this country into a crisis.
Otherwise, if they don't address that deficit, they will plunge the country into a crisis, you say. Let's wrap up with some thoughts from the Daily Guide newspaper, and we'll move on to other papers, but I mean to wrap with this paper. Mystery over Mills's death lingers. There's also NDC threatens to fight EC over Ghana card. I'll bring you some snippets of the Mills story, but I am a bit taken aback by this cartoon today in the Daily Guide newspaper, sort of depicting the gang rape of a level 100 student at the KNUST so over a week ago. And I know you have some license to put out some of these matters, but I feel this only creates a certain picture as far as the rape culture, if you like, is concerned. And for me, I don't know, maybe you've not taken a look at it, but I don't know whether it's the most appropriate thing. You could react to that, but controversy over the cause of death of former President John Evans Atta Mills continues to deepen as many of his supporters and some family members refuse to believe the facts or the circumstances of his death. Which ones exactly? We don't really know. But at least there's one cited here. The Ebusia Penning of the family told Angel FM last Friday that so far very little information had been released about what actually killed Professor Mills, asserting that one of the late president's brothers told him he died from a sickness. Of course, we also know that early on, brother of the late former president, Mills, stated that there was no need for Ghanaians to know how the former statesman died, but later gave some detail about his sinus issues and what culminated in his death. Are we merely shifting attention to a non-issue when it comes to the Mills passing? What do you make of it?
No, exactly the point that you make, really, at this time of our country. With
10 years on.
Yeah, I mean, what is the point about bringing this whole unnecessary issue about what killed males and so on and so forth. I think it's just a way to divert attention from the critical issues that affect all of us. And the earlier we disregarded those kinds of diversions, the better for all of us. I have said that Mills was a genuine patriotic leader. Mills, if you talk about somebody who is incorruptible, I think that I can say Mills was, even as I am not a member of the NDC, I never got closer to President Mills, but looking at his conduct and looking at the kinds of decisions that were made and so on, it's clear that Mills really, really, truly had this country at heart, right, and wanted to do the best for this country. I cannot say the same thing of other leaders of the NDC and of the NPP. If the man has passed on, let's allow him to rest in peace. Right. Let's not use that as capital to make ourselves important, as people like Okuwa Ajiboho and even people in the NDC would want to have it. It's really unimportant. Let's do things to honor his memory, not the necessary politicking and the partisanship and so on and so forth.
Let's wrap the conversation, the review, with these two papers, and then I'll bring in a story about Papa Kwesi Ndum, who has had quite a bit to say recently about how Operation Feed Yourself ties into Ghana Beyond Aid. I'll share with you some thoughts he shared recently in an open letter. But Economy Times, S&P downgrades Ghana's economy, projects CD depreciation to deteriorate further. And that is a projection we were talking about earlier. Government spends 37.5 billion Ghana cedis on salaries and debt servicing in just 6 months. And government revises macroeconomic indicators. Inflation pegged at 28.5%. Check out more details from Economy at Times. There's also Ghanaian publisher, IMF bailout, my free SHS, untouchable, says Akufo-Addo. Asumani now, National Security Coordinator, I'm talking about Mr. Edward Asumani. Then there's Intim, grateful to God. He was at that Methodist church in Achimota, Mile 7, and lying prostrate and all of that. We'll see how that pans out for him, but definitely he is grateful. Info Minister bemoans welfare of journalists. All those stories in there. But Papa Kwesi Ndum has been saying you cannot delink Operation Feed Yourself from Ghana Beyond Aid. And he has quite some interesting suggestions for President Akufo-Addo. He says, given where we are, all infrastructure contracts signed by the state must have a minimum of 25% of value going to an indigenous Ghanaian and his or her enterprise. He says, ban completely the importation of chocolate, soft drinks, fruit juices, fruits, poultry, and meat. Ban the importation of rice and sugar. Immediately ban the serving of any imported food or drink at all state functions. All professional service agreements must have at least 25% indigenous Ghanaian participation. And finally, all new and renewed concessions of gold, bauxite, oil and gas, diamond, timber must have a minimum of 25% indigenous Ghanaian ownership. The last point is something I've been talking about even last Friday in my blunt thoughts I shared. But there are many more things he says. How do you react to these? Practical?
Well, they are the necessary steps.
And Sule, we have just about a minute to
yes,
wrap up.
they are the necessary steps that we need to take as a country to get us closer to where we have to be. But it would require some time to put these things into practice. They are not things that can be suddenly done. Right. At least we can begin to show intentions in that direction. And so certainly they are the right things to be done, but whether or not our government will do that is another matter. I think that we've gotten to the point where the government must cut down a bit on PR and be realistic with the people of Ghana in terms of expectations and in terms of what can realistically be done.
Nana Akufo-Addo has spoken time and again about a Ghana Beyond Aid. Do you feel they have the will to do this, to execute some of these, even in its most basic forms?
It certainly is a very nice slogan. It certainly is a visionary slogan, but it has, since the proclamation of it, lacked the steps that ought to be taken in order to get us to the point where we are beyond aid. Of course, they've said that Ghana beyond aid does not mean that we would not be seeking aid or we would not be accepting aid. That
Right.
is understandable. But in the long term, one would have been expecting that the actions that would take us to a long-term winning of the country from the dependence on aid, which
Right.
is where we are now, would have been taken. But so far, I am not seeing that from President Akufo-Addo. I am not seeing that kind of leadership that would take us there. And as I said, for me, what is critical, Ben, is that the government must cut back on the PR and be realistic with the Ghanaian people. That's the only way to get the support of the people to manage the country within the circumstances.
Right.
But if the circumstances are difficult and you continue to give hope, false hope, then I'm sure that the crisis would be on for some time to come.
Always a joy having you, Suleiman Brahima. Thank you so much for joining us for another morning, and I wish you the best of the day and the week.
Thank you so much for having me, and have a great week.
All right. Well, this is how we hang our boots for the news review. Hopefully, you enjoyed that. But stay with us, because up next, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi will be serving you sports, definitely on our radar. We'll be talking about the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. We'll be right back.